Hi everyone, I am back as promised, just like I said I would be. Happy Monday, and welcome back. So this video, I'm going to have some fun, but I do have to announce a trigger warning for, I think, a lot of men. Hold on. Mama Lee and Blanket fell. Even Mama Lee and Blanket agrees. Now, you know something is about to go down when Mama Lee and Blanket behind me is in agreement. But yes, I do have to announce a trigger warning because I understand that some people are in denial. There are a lot of people on social media that I think get into back and forth arguments unnecessarily because they're just simply in denial, right? Or they're uninformed. Let's say uninformed, which causes the sense of denial and shock and disbelief. So we are going to address a very pertinent topic that I think we don't talk about enough. Now, you guys know that I am the guru when it comes to alternative sexual lifestyles, just talking about sex very frankly and openly. I'm very transparent. I'm relating to certain aspects of my own personal sex life or lack thereof currently, because I have made a vow to abstinence. Going on 2 years now. This coming January will be 2 years that I have abstained from sexual intercourse. I feel very proud of myself for that achievement. And I have addressed like the reason why I've decided to abstain. But anyway, so relating to this topic here, I was watching, this video is actually inspired by a video that I was watching. Caresha Please. She's new when it comes to doing interviews. I think she's a rapper from Miami. And I don't think I shoot this up well enough. But she started doing interviews on the Revolt platform owned by, I think, P. Diddy. And I'm watching this interview that she was doing with this woman. I think the woman was also an entertainer or rapper that she was interviewing. And she has a segment where she, basically asks them direct questions related to their sexual experiences. So she was like, do you or have you ever faked an orgasm, right? And then the rapper's response on her show was, no, I don't do that. And of course, it made me reflect on my own personal life because I'm just like, but I have, right? This ginger, and I thought it was turmeric, but this is ginger and lemon. Love it. I'm like, I have. And of course, I'm a woman, so this is not new news to me that most women do not orgasm during sex. This is where I need the help of women. If y'all are ever so bold like I am and very comfortable in your own sexuality, feel free, chime in and drop your comments below and answer me this. I figured that was you, Niece. What's going on, Lex? Thank you. Good morning. Feel free to chime in and drop your comments below. Correct me if I'm wrong. But even research backs this up. Yo, it's like, this is like not new information. This is age-old information that most women do not orgasm when we have sex. We just don't. Not to say we're not sexually gratified. So I think that's the confusing part, because most people who don't differentiate between sexual gratification and having an orgasm, they are independent of each other. They can be anyway. I think for men, perhaps no. So this is gender specific, right? For men need to orgasm, I think, for them to be sexually satisfied. Like, what's the point if you don't climax, right? But for a woman, we can be penetrated, we can get wet, we can lubricate, we can come, but we most of us do not orgasm during penetrable sex. This is fact. When I say most, we're talking about over 80% of women when they have sexual intercourse with a man. Penetration. We do not orgasm. What I find interesting is that a number of men who are going to comment when I upload this video to YouTube, right? Because I'm recording it live here on Facebook. When this video goes live on YouTube, what I find hilarious is the comments, right? Because I know there are going to be men who are going to, sensitive men, shall I say, who are going to take offense to this. They're going to be alarmed. They're going to take it personal. They're going to take my words personal, yo. But I'm going to speak from personal experience, though, here in this video, as I always do. Because as I watched that interview with Caresha and that rapper who was very so open to say, no, I do not fake orgasms. I was like, damn, I wish I could have her confidence, right? Is it so much confidence as it is courage? I think it is courage. It's courage because it takes an immeasurable amount of courage to tell a man. And when I reflect on my own personal experience, I'm talking about men who I've dated. Like, these are men who I fell in love with, men who I've cohabitated with, right? And I have a few in mind. I'm going to give some examples because I love examples. I'm going to give some examples here. Men who I've been in love with, right, who I've held near to my heart, who I trusted, obviously enough to cohabitate with these men. Like, we lived together, we did many things together, but I did not orgasm. They did not make me orgasm. This is just facts, right? And I'm like thinking, I couldn't imagine what it's like telling these men that I did not orgasm or I wasn't thoroughly sexually satisfied. I could have been satisfied, right? I could have came. I could have felt sexually relieved in the moment, right? I could have got my itch scratched. Is that how you say it? My itch scratched, right? But it's nothing like an orgasm, especially when you first experience it. And research shows that about 20% of women have never experienced an orgasm. That's sad. We're talking about sexually active women here, okay? Because you have to have sex in order to experience an orgasm. But these are sexually active women who have never experienced an orgasm. And having to bring to the table, right? Having to break the news, knowing, you're like, especially you love black men. Me, I love me some alpha, strong, sexy, black, confident, dominant black men. Emphasis on the black, right? So when you're dealing with such men, even though they can be strong and dominant alpha, they have very sensitive hearts. I feel like we are trained to feel guilty. We don't want to hurt feelings. Exactly. Lex, exactly. We don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And I said that in my prelude video that I made yesterday and talking about this video that I'm making today, that the reason why, as I reflect on my own personal experience with men, right? Men I've dated, that I faked the orgasm. I didn't let them know I didn't orgasm. And they would ask me, we're going to get into that in a minute about this whole questioning, right? Men feel like, okay, I question her. I asked her. That's why I ask questions, because I need to make sure she's satisfied. And just because you ask questions and she says yes does not mean that she is satisfied. But I felt bad. Like I guess that's why I say it takes courage to break the news to a man, especially a man that you love, right? And I have a soft spot in my heart for black men. I just do, because like I empathize with them, all the shit they go through. I feel like black men already have it hard enough in society, given that they're targeted by the police. You know, they're racially discriminated against, like way 10 times more than black women, I would have to say. Like, you know, black women and black men's experiences in America, although they're similar, they are not the same. Black men, I think, have it way much worse. So I sometimes feel like I feel bad for black men. And so the last thing I would want to do is walk over his ego. if anything, I want to stroke his ego, right? I don't want to damage his ego. I want to do anything that's going to trigger him necessarily. Like, I be sparing men's feelings. And I made a post on my Facebook page that in 2023, we are not doing that anymore. A lot of women go around moaning during sex, knowing damn well they're not sexually satisfied. But we do it to please the man. And also, I think we understand, like, the interaction, right? The importance of us moaning on how that impacts him, right? The more we moan is like the harder he goes, the harder he thrusts, right? Like the more sensual the thrusts are when we moan. So like it's a two-way street, and we understand that. We feed into that. We're boosting his ego. We're reinforcing him to keep going forward with it. But what if we're not satisfied in that moment? What if we're not sexually gratified? But we send this false message. It's misleading. It's confusing to the man. And I posed a question yesterday. Is it right? Like, should we be doing this? Let me know in the comment section. Should we be faking orgasms? Now, granted, most women, we don't orgasm when we have sex. But in a sense, it is faking an orgasm, right? We may not say, okay, yes, I orgasm, knowing damn well we didn't, which is blatantly a lie, right? But we're in the motion. We're giving out these signals and moaning and giving out this impression that the sex is way better than what it actually is. And when we do that, we're sending false signals, mixed messages. We're stroking his ego. And it's like, no wonder why these men are walking around here with big dick energy, right? We boost up their self-esteem, which they go and take sometimes. Not all men, of course, because I wouldn't say all men cheat or are dishonest in relationships. Some men will break up maybe mutually with you and then move on. But some men do. They take that boosted ego, that boosted self-esteem that we help co-create, right? Boosting up his head like he got big dick energy. He go take that and go fuck the next one. Could you imagine how different the world would be if we as women, just brought it to him real, but like, that ain't it. Imagine how many men would be walking around here with brokenness, low self-esteem. Not that they don't already. And sometimes they do, and they overcompensate because they're doing too much in it, and they put so much stock in what they believe they do have control over because they lack so much control in this socio-political economic context we live in. So the things they do have control is what's between their legs. Okay, I got a big dick. I may not have a big pocket or a big bank account because resources are strapped from me, right? But I got this, big tool between my legs. And with that, they gain a sense of pride, a sense of status, right? Like, this is not something new. This is something that obviously has been socialized in the minds of Black men from a very young age growing up. When they get some ass in middle school, high school, right? It's like kudos to them. High five, they get cool points for coming back and telling their bros like, yeah, I hit, That's how they get leverage. That's their social status, right? For a Black man. And that ain't nothing really changed, right? That was back in the school days, but nothing really changed. It's still the same. But like I said, could you imagine as women if we were real with them? So I am not the type of woman for when things go wrong between the Black man and the Black woman, right? Especially, let's say in the case of, I don't know if you guys have been following, but in the case of, let's say, the Mr. and Mrs. LaTruth, and how they are going through a divorce, right? And of course, each party in that relationship paints himself as the victim, right? And a lot of women are taking the side of Mrs. LaTruth and this, and I'm not that kind of person, because for me, what's most important is taking responsibility in anything, because I feel like that's where your power lies. When you can own your role in anything, no matter what it is, you own your role in that empowers you, right? So for women, A lot of women do play the victim. We could be victims too, right? Oh, like, oh, he cheated on me or he did this, but it's just like, ask ourselves, what role did we play in boosting up his self-esteem? Because he, like, a lot of men that's walking around here with big dick energy should not be walking around here with that amount of confidence, knowing damn well, but we give it to them. And that's a prime example with Mr. and Mrs. is the truth, because in hindsight, she's like, oh, he got a shrimp. He got a little penis, right? But if that is true, then why are you all up in his phone? Like, why is there a dynamic created where he has so much like confidence in himself? This ego is through the roof for him to even think that he got it like that, to be having all these different women in his mind, real or not, but it's in his mind, and this is like put in your mind that, okay, he got options. You know, like, And I think one can play it the other way to say, okay, well, if that happens, right, if that dynamic is created where men are not so sure of how well they're packing down there, how well they are performing, they have this degree of insecurity because a woman is honest, because a woman is, you know, forthcoming and saying, I do not come every time we have sex. I do not orgasm. Right? So he might feel like, okay, let me test this out on another woman. Right? If it ain't popping here in this bedroom, let me go and see if I'm popping it somewhere else, right? So it could obviously have the reverse effect that a person intends for it to have. It can go either way. But in terms of being real, right? They say honesty is the best policy and keeping things 100. I said to myself going forward, and I've made a lot of changes in my life, right? I have not always been the way I am today, as you guys see me, right? Even when it comes to just sexual activity, you know, I can get down, but I have been sexually abstinent for the past 2 years. This coming January will make 2 years. And I say on top of that, going forward, when I decide that I'm ready to break that streak of abstinence with the person, of course, that I trust, and we're moving in the same direction, and I'm building something with, like, I think it's important to keep it real and honest and just be like, it's not hitting, right? But it's like, how do you do that, though? Like, in her interview, Caresha, when she interviewed that rapper, like, she was just so unapologetic about it. Like, she was so disinhibited. She just like put it out there and just like, no, I do not fake orgasms. Just straight gutter with it. And I'm just like, okay, it's one thing to say that in an interview so blatantly, right? Without even second thought about it. But like, how easy it is for a woman to just come right out and say that to her man, especially after they have sex. Like, what's the number one question that men ask when you having sex with them? Did you come? That's the number one question. That question annoys the shit out of me. It just does. It does, but I know some men watching this are gonna be triggered. I already know. This is not my first video that I've made about topics relating to men and women. And of course, everyone has their opinion. People watch my videos. I think they should get triggered, right? You should feel a certain kind of way. You should reflect on your own personal life when watching my videos. If you do, my video has achieved its goal. Right? Because I say things and I talk about things that are stimulating to the mind. So you definitely should reflect. And men, they reflect and they go in. Sometimes they say things that I think people should speak for their own personal experience, but it's like they sometimes want to point the finger. All right, if you got to ask a woman, did she come? You should know the answer, but it's just like these are uninsightful men. It's just like they're missing something up there to ask that question. And you're going to have men that watch these videos and they're going to comment and they're going to start talking about the size of their penis because they feel insecure. I'm pretty sure as a man watching this, you're going to feel a certain kind of way because in your mind before seeing this, a lot of men, this is new information to them. They think they got it down there and they think that everything about a woman is because of them, right? You know, and it's just like, no, you don't make me orgasm every time we have sex. In fact, I've never orgasmed. That's just reality. Right? You got yours, but no, I didn't get mine. You know, I'm left like not fully satisfied. And then they're gonna start questioning like their own abilities after they watch this. They're gonna start like talking about the size of their penis. They're gonna start thinking about women they've slept with, right? And how, oh yeah, she moaned though, like she was moaning and her body was shaking, and she like, that's what men brag about, right? That's what gives them a sense of confidence. Like, okay, they laid it down, they packing down there. But really, in fact, it ain't all that. If anything, I feel like the response that women give is so inaccurate, right? It's just like the physical response, right, that you see in her body is so disproportionate to what actually really happened. Like her personal experience, that what she really experienced in that moment, it just don't line up. It just doesn't. She's doing that because she cares about you. She loves you. Women, we are caring people. Good morning, Sergio. Good morning, everyone watching this video. Feel free to, everyone, you guys chime in. Let me know what your take is on this. But women, just naturally, we're just kind-hearted people. That's just who we are. So it's just like we be sparing their feelings so much. And I'm 39 years old, and I reflect back on my experiences, right? And I can recall one time of orgasm from intercourse. One time. And this happened recently, actually. Not like recently, but like in my 30s. Like I was dating one of my good friends. He's from West Africa. He's from Gambia. And I've talked about this guy before, right? Go back and watch the video I made on pencil dick. I made a whole video on pencil dick because I'm just disgusted. Could you imagine a pencil dick man making me orgasm for the first time? But it wasn't even the intercourse that made me orgasm. See, this is the part I really want to spend some time with because I think oftentimes men miss it, right? They go on and talk about, oh, they got a big dick. Women say I got a big dick. Women say my dick too thick. And that can be cool and all, right? But it ain't so much about that. We have to stop the performance, yes. And with the lies, we be performing, we be like, sometimes crying, body shaking, all of this, back arch, all of this, right? To make this man think that it's so much good when it's not. But thinking about this experience I had with my very good friend, and he just hit me up the other day, and that's why I made a post to say that, what's up with these holiday texts, like men trying to get this holiday ass? It ain't happening, yo. This shop is closed. I'm so dead ass serious, right? Because for me, like, sex is spiritual. It should be something that's held sacred. And I get it. A lot of men just want to have fun. And I've been there. Like, I'm not one to judge, men, because, like, we're all at different points, different stages in our life, right? There was a stage in my life when I was out there and all I did was want to have fun. Men wanted to marry me at that time in my 20s, in my early 30s, and I'm just like, I ain't really was feeling marriage. Like, what the hell? I want to have fun. All of my friends, they're single. We're in college. We live in the life. Like, we're just exploring the world. So it's just like, that's where I was at. And the men I dated at that time, they hated it. They're like, all you want to do is hang out with your homegirls. All you want to do is wear oochie coochie booty shorts. Like, they were disgusted, but they loved me and they wanted to marry me. But I'm just like, I was not in that headspace. Now, of course, shit, I'm about to be 40 years old next year. Of course, I've slowed down tremendously. But in thinking about that one time when I orgasm, it was like more foreplay. How I describe it, it wasn't the typical foreplay as like, it was touching and kissing, right? But it was a mind. For me, sex is mental before it ever reaches the physical aspect. And if only men could understand the psychological underpinnings, the psychology of sex. And they wonder why, like, for women it's different. Men obviously would get arousal, they can come, most men, not all, of course, they can come and not have that sexual, that emotional attachment to a woman. But for women, it's different. And we will tell you, this is no secret. You have women that will be forthcoming and tell a man, like, this is what I want. For me, it's about the emotional connection, communication. They'll ask you these things. This is the thing that get me. Men ask women the answers that they need to know in order for things to be smooth and be successful in that interaction. But yeah, it's just like, okay, you have the answer, but you still don't, like, why aren't you applying it? They'll ask a woman, what do you like in a man? Communication, consistent communication. Because it's through the communication where you're building intimacy. And it's the consistency that establishes trust. And what is trust? When a woman trusts you, she is open. You will see varying degrees of her being willing to open to you. Right? When you come across women who, you look at as cold and, they're hard to get and that they're hard to kind of crack through, that's for a reason, right? But it's not to say that those walls can't come down. Any wall can come down from anyone, right? It's just a matter of a woman feeling safe enough to let those walls down because she is in full control of those walls being up. Those walls can come down at the right time with the right person, right? And so she is just trying to gauge to see, is it the right time? A lot of times it's not, because women know, like, you in it for different reasons. All you want to do is get your quick nut and move on. And the space that a woman is in that moment, that's not where she's at psychologically, right? She's looking for nurturing. She's looking for consistent communication. She's looking for security and stability, if anything. And that's not what you're communicating. That's not the vibes you're giving off. So those walls going to remain up. And then this personal interaction that I had with my friend from Gambia was just like he had all those boxes checked off, right? We were vibing. He's still a good person too, don't get me wrong, right? It was like we had to just come to that mutual agreement that, and I'm not going to go into that, but in that moment, and this took place at his place, it's like in that moment, I felt like I was the only woman in the world that mattered to him. That's that foreplay right there. Right. And this is all day. This is like, and the foreplay didn't just start that day, obviously, because in order to get me in your place, number one, in order for me to come over to a man's place, like that foreplay has got to start from day one. Right. And we just building upon that. The foreplay is communication, answering your phone, texting, checking in up on me. That's foreplay. Right. I'm learning that men don't really learn by communicating, but by actions. If you do something, they learn. Exactly. You got to show their ass, right? That communication is just like go over their head. But for women, communication is important. Men can be communicators, right? But that's not the language that men speak. Right? When we're talking about love languages, oftentimes communication ain't it for men. But for women, like when a man spends time on the phone or face to face talking to us, like that creates this warm, fuzzy spot within us. We're just like, he cares. That's that quality time, right? That's a whole love language that resonates with a lot of women. And that's what I got in that experience. And so when the time came when we actually got physical, when he started making moves, it's like, damn, my body, I was already craving it, right? Because it's like the buildup is what is important, right? That consistent communication, that checking in, just those thoughtful gestures, like getting me breakfast, because at the time I was visiting New York. I was visiting him in New York, but I was living in Los Angeles, and he made accommodations for me to be there. I didn't have to pay for anything, okay? That's a whole nother love language right there. Just giving gifts, right? And some men look at it like, oh, she's a gold digger. It's nothing about gold digging, right? Especially when a woman has her own. These are gestures. This is old school shit that a lot of modern day men don't know anything about, right? But when you make these gestures, right? He would, because of course I was staying at his place. He gave me the key to his place. I can come and go while he's at work. I'm in town visiting, right? And he has to get up early in the morning, go to work. I'm still in bed. I wake up. Breakfast is already there that he went out and prepared. Right? That's what I'm talking about. That foreplay is just like, damn, those things all add up and they help to soften any defenses, any walls that a woman may have up. Them walls are down. Like, I was wide open, okay? And the fact that he wasn't so quick to try to rush into sex. I'm using this as an example, as a teaching moment here. But he wasn't like, okay, he wasn't pressed for sex. He was very disciplined. He's actually a Muslim, right? Anybody know anything about Muslims? You know, they have a lot of self-discipline. They're not really supposed to be having sex much like Christians, but some do, right? And so he had the discipline where for him, he ain't gotta jump up in the pussy so quick. He played it very strategically and very calculated. And then that day came, I think it was evening. Yeah, it was like evening time came and it was just like, God damn. But even still, he didn't rush into it. It was very well thought out, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like the way he caressed me, the way he just took his time and getting to know every crevice of my body to the point where, I was craving it. I didn't say it verbally, but my body was just, my body was at the point where I was just like, oh my gosh, just fuck me already. You feel me? Like, that's the point where a man wants to get a woman at. A lot of y'all think y'all know sex, but you don't know. Just because you're able to get your dick wet, just because you're able to ejaculate, don't mean you really know sex. It's levels to it. When I say levels, it's a way that you can make a woman orgasm without even touching her, without even inserting your penis. And that's what happened to me that day. I was just like, I couldn't believe myself. I didn't know my body was capable of such a thing. I mean, I've seen it in videos, but I'm like, I didn't think that my body could perform in such a way where I was so shocked. Like, how I had a whole fucking body orgasm. Like, how could my body do this? And there was no penetration. The whole kissing and the touching and the caressing, I went on for about a good hour and a half just on the couch in the living room. And then finally he was like, you ready? I'm like, am I fucking ready? Nigga, my freaking shit dripping. Like, I'm like, I'm so freaking ready at that point. We go to the bedroom. Oh my gosh, And just like the whole buildup, the whole anticipation, and by the time like we got to his bed, my body was so weak. He didn't even insert it into me, and I'm orgasming. I'm so like, what the fuck? I'm like, I never knew my body could do such a thing. I was trembling all over, and it felt so. I didn't even need sex at that point, but we had sex. Now, what the sex was like, that's a totally different story, right? Well, actually, it's not good. It is related because with that, like when the time we had sex, and granted he came quick as shit, right? But it's like I think he didn't even have to ask me how was it, because he knew, like you can see it on my body. A woman can't fake that kind of orgasm. We're talking about an orgasm where I'm lying down and he's just kind of like hovering over me, but not even inserted in me. And he kept that position for a minute. Like everything is just slowed down. It was no rush. Because where do we have to go? Nowhere, right? And so it's just like he saw my body. And I'm just like, I'm like beckoning. I'm beckoning for him at that moment. And then, he inserts it in. And he came quick as shit. And that was a disappointing part. Because even though, yes, I had an orgasm for the very first time with him in that way, but without even having, the physical intercourse part, it's like I was expecting, you had this expectation, like, damn, I wanted it. I wanted those thrusts, like not just a couple, but I wanted him to go in. And it's just like he came so quick. perhaps because I was wet. I hadn't had sex in like a good minute before having sex with him. You know, tight, wet. He was anticipating it. So when I say quick, like, yo, probably within 2 minutes. I can't exaggerate. And then the size of his penis is penis size can be very misleading behind clothes, right? He's kind of a tall guy, slim. From the outside, you know, when we were on the couch and we were doing the kissing and the touching and the caressing for like over an hour, and I was just, my body's in my mind in ecstasy. Like of course, we women, we want to see what that feeling like, what he working with, right? And at times he would like thrust himself against me, and I'm like, damn, okay, I thought he was packing. But then, like, when, of course, you know, we disrobed in the bedroom, I was disappointed. Yo, pencil dick. Go back and watch that video. Dude had a pencil freaking dick. You know, of course I felt this. Not that, okay, I wasn't feeling anything, but it wasn't fulfilling to my expectation, what I was, you know, what I wanted. And yeah, and it came quick. So that can be very disappointing, right? And I think, you know, with his religion, I made a whole separate video on this. This is the reason why me and him, we didn't work out, because, you know, he was so committed and dedicated to Islam, like devout freaking Muslim. It was annoying to me, right? And I'm just like, listen, we're going to sit up here. You're going to have me wide open like this. Like, don't play with me. Do not fucking, right? And he had this belief, right? It's all in his mind that with being a Muslim, you know, you have to wash yourself off after you have sex. And so he was like anal about that, like OCD about it, where every single time we had sex, he would like go and clean up. And I'm just like, but that disrupts the intimacy. Right. So that was a mind fuck for me. I couldn't do it. Right. But outside of that, like, he was just so accommodating, so caring, and just nurturing and like checking. And he still be reaching out to me. And I'm just like, that's not how I want intimacy to look. Right. Like, listen, we going to sin, because I don't subscribe to any traditional religion. So I'm like, nigga, I'm all in. If we're going to sit up here and do it, I'll go all in with it. I ain't thinking about, oh my gosh, you know, what does Allah think, or I'm not thinking about that shit. His mind, he's thinking about that. So that creates this barrier, right? And I'm just like, that fucks everything up. But as it relates to, like, you know, men knowing that a woman does not orgasm every time that they have sex, I think there's something could be done. It's not like, okay, all hope is lost. When you get to that realization and come to that acceptance, I think it'd be very difficult for men to come to that acceptance and knowing that. Right. So they go through this denial phase where they're just like, well, you know, I've been with women and they moan and they say, I got a big dick. And in fact, they said it was too big. And, you know, that's all for them to stroke their own ego, to make themselves feel better, because they're faced with this truth. Right? That obviously, nobody told them that. They don't tell them this in school, right? And I had sex education, in elementary school. Way back then, they taught us about sex in elementary school, right? They don't teach you that part, though, right, about it. They teach you all the bad things about STDs and pregnancy, but they don't teach you about, like, positive sexuality and how most women, you know, we just not satisfied in that way. And a lot of women, even here, you know, like on a public forum like this, which, you know, I deem is safe and I feel comfortable expressing myself. But, you know, even like this, you know, a lot of women just are not going to come out and say, like, no, I don't usually orgasm when I have sex, right? Because I guess for a woman, it can be shameful. Not just for the man to be faced with the reality that, yo, you ain't laid down like you thought you did. But for a woman, I think, because we go into this mode of feeling guilt, I think, Lex, you said it, maybe feeling guilt as if like something is wrong with us, or feeling shame that we did something wrong and something is wrong with us. We feel both, actually, shame and guilt, when we shouldn't. Because there's something to be said, I think, about a woman's anatomy. If we're talking about 80% of women do not orgasm when they have sex, that's across the board, right? I think it has a lot to do with the way men and women are socialized and what sex looks like for men and women in our society, you know? I think now it's even worse because social media, we have been conditioned to be self-serving for instant gratification, getting our needs and wants met instantaneously, irrespective of how it impacts someone else, right? It's all about me, 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 me. It kind of has shaped us to go into this regress state because that's not a level of maturity how adults should function, right? So we're not thinking about the other person. Men aren't thinking about if a woman is sexually gratified. Just because a man and most men ask the question, did you come, doesn't mean they really care about her sexual satisfaction. Given that, look at when they ask the question. It's after he got his. So why does it matter if a woman came at that point? It's too late at that point to even consider that. Those are things that I think a conversation should be had before all of this unfolds. This isn't the courting phase, the getting to know a woman phase, right? The foreplay phase. If you truly want to know how to satisfy a woman, of course, there are a lot of books out there on it, but I think no book is going to be able to replace the amount of knowledge, right, and understanding that can be had between a man and a woman just on a personal level. You having that conversation with her, maybe she don't know. I know what gets me on. Now, like I said, I'm more in tune like with spirituality myself and the psychology of sex, right? So when a man tantalizes me in an intellectual way, right, and slows things down and makes me feel like I am the only person in the entire world, that to me is a turn on so many levels. So I already knew that about myself, but experiencing that in terms of a sexual moment and being able to feel that, right, and how it manifests in terms of an orgasm, I had never felt that. Right? It's not that a man had never made me feel like I'm very special. Of course, a lot of men do. But it's just like slowing things down. Like everything, it's almost like the stars were aligned. Every star in the universe was in alignment. Everything was perfect alignment at that moment for me to be able to feel what I felt in my body, yo. And I've never felt that. And that was the first and last time. And we're talking about, when did that happen? A couple of years ago. Right? So I think, yes, it takes... there are many different ways that a man can make a woman orgasm. It's possible. A lot of women use vibrators. Yes. Right. And there's this thing that using vibrators could be a good thing on one hand, but could be a not so good thing because it desensitizes that area. Right. And increases like the threshold, right, for sensitivity, so that it makes it more difficult for a man to stimulate a woman down there if she consistently uses a vibrator. That's one theory. But the way I like to look at it is that there's so many nerve endings throughout our entire body that are linked to sexual arousal. Not just the clitoris. The clitoris obviously is a dead giveaway, right? And there are like so many nerve endings down there, but like it's so many different ways that a woman can be stimulated, right? And I gave you guys one example to show this man didn't even touch me. At least not in my genital area, and I'm already my full body orgasm, right? It's so many ways. I'm gonna give another example. I've said this example before in another video, but I think it's pertinent that I share it again here. This is a prime example of what I mean, yo. And I know I'm not the only one who has experienced this. So for me, I identify myself as a submissive. Baby girl, that may mean nothing to you guys watching, right? So for starters, it's essentially an identity that's linked to BDSM, right? But BDSM is a whole alternative sexual lifestyle for people. But for me, I get turned on by being in submission to a man. And this is not just sexual submission, but this is 24/7. More psychological, right? This power exchange, that shit turns me on. And it's not in an abusive way. It's more in a caring, nurturing way, right? That's why I identify the other side to that is baby girl, submissive baby girl, because this is a power dynamic, it's a power exchange where I'm attracted to men who assume the role of daddy, so to speak, right? This some old school shit. Some of y'all can relate, some of y'all can't. But for those men, they like being in charge, right? They know how to take the lead in relationships. They lay out the law, respectfully though, right? They have a sense of dignity about themselves too. They do it in a very self-respecting, respectable, dignified way. And therefore a woman can easily submit to that, right? You have to present yourself as a man that's worth submitting to in order to get that submission. But that's the kind of dynamic I like. I respond very well to that dynamic, and it has to be organic. When I tell men this sometimes, especially in dating app, they put on a facade. A lot of men fake. And come on, black women, we can see through bullshit many miles away, right? So I can definitely weed out the ones who faking it, the ones who come with that genuineness, right? Which is rare. That's the reason why I'm still single, because that shit is rare. A lot of men are socialized to be beta males, right? And they don't know how to even plan a first date, they're just lost. And they question who should pay for the date and, should we be 50-50 in terms of splitting the bills like that. That's not what I'm talking about. So I was dating, when I first moved to New York, 2014, I was dating this guy. Former New York Times reporter. And again, also, I'm attracted to alpha men. Alpha men usually have a sense of power, socio-economic, political power within this structure that we live in here in our society, right? In real life, right? Not just in their own head, but like in real life, these are powerful men. That's just what I'm attracted to. I was dating this guy. He's retired from the New York Times, had a place in, maybe I'm saying too much. I'm not even going to say where, but in New York, I'll just say that. And we have been dating for a good little while before I moved to New York. And we got to know each other. We got very comfortable with each other. Got to know each other. And I was at his place, and he had this desk, this office area space, like one of those L-shaped kind of expensive desks, right? He was sitting at his desk. He was on the phone. And I think he told me, he had this rule, right? Which I had agreed upon the rule too. That's another thing about being in that kind of relationship, is that there are rules, but they're mutually agreed upon, right? If you guys want to learn a little bit more about the whole BDSM lifestyle and how I got first introduced, go to my website at danielleleash.com. And I posted an excerpt of a story called Dying to Submit. Click on that story. It's from my homepage. You can access the story from my homepage. And I say it's, autobiographical fictional fantasy, because it's based on my life. It's based on real, actual experience that I had with this alpha male dom mentor that I had back in Atlanta, Georgia, before I moved to New York City in 2014. So I kind of already was primed for this when I met this New York Times reporter. I want to like you to do this live on TikTok too. Nah, I feel like that's enough. I'm on too many platforms. I'm on Facebook. I'm on freaking YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I'm not with jumping from different platform to platform. TikTok, that's too much. I know people who use TikTok and that's cool, but it's too much for me. And so I was already primed for this kind of relationship, having been first introduced to it back in Atlanta with my mentor that I had. And so, I'm at his place, and he had this rule that we had both agreed upon that, I'm unclothed. I'm like, I like to be free, right? So, no clothes. No clothes in his house. Not that we were fucking all the time. You would think that, okay, just because a woman is walking around naked and there's a man present, they're always fucking. That wasn't even the case. Like, it's a mind thing, y'all. I'm all about the mind, clearly, as a psychologist. And so, you can have sex without having intercourse, right? And so that's kind of what was happening. And that shit is even much better than intercourse, even touching a person, right? It's just like when you're having sex in your mind with the person and not even touching them, but you're in the same, physical space with them. And so I'll be walking around unclothed, and he told me, he told me to come and sit on his desk. He was on the phone with his brother. And I'm just like, that shit is an eternal in of itself, right? When you're doing things that are socially kind of awkward or unacceptable, but you're doing it, you're in that position, right? So I'm sitting on his desk, fully naked. This is back in 2014, right? Like 8 years ago. And he's on the phone with his brother. His brother don't know, obviously, that I'm sitting in front of him naked, and he's like talking to his brother on the phone, but we both know this. So that's like the nostalgic part about it. And he's on the phone with his brother for maybe 20 minutes, right? Not too long, but it seems like it's long when you're just sitting there, right? And you're making eye contact and exchanging smiles and all this, and exchanging all kind of other messages too, non-verbally. And he's looking at my body. That's another thing I'm getting turned on by. Like, I'm an exhibitionist, so like that shit turns me on when a man like worships my body with his eyes, and it's almost like he's beholden to me. It gives me a sense of power. So of course he's sitting at his desk and I'm sitting on his desk. So I'm much more elevated than he is, though I'm his submissive. And like, he's looking up at me and just admiring my physique and my innocence, because I am innocent, right? Even though I'm very comfortable with my sexuality, like I do no wrong. And I'm sitting there and just like, oh my gosh, time passes by. He's on the phone for about 20 minutes. And the more time passes by, oh gosh, the more turned on I'm getting. And he comes to a close on the phone call, and he looks at me. He's like, stand up. And when I say your girl was leaking, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Leaking, right? So when I say there's ways to stimulate a woman without touching her, I feel like a lot of men are not there. Some men obviously are, right? Men who are very sexually experienced and men who know a woman's body. You have men that will watch this video and say, oh, well, it's your fault that, you don't orgasm, right? They'll blame women. Oh, it's your fault. Because you should know your body. You know your body better than a man. Yes, of course I know my body and I know myself, right? But do you know, right? When you're engaged in interacting with a woman on that level, it's important not only for her to know, but for you to know. I don't want to date a man who is a virgin. I don't want to date a man who is sexually inexperienced at all. I've come across them. I got to wrap this video up, but I've come across these men like on a dating app recently. This man said he's a virgin. I'm just like, right? And one may think like, okay, it could be fun dating a virgin, right? Maybe he can learn a few things from you, but I don't want to teach a man. That, to me, is the worst turn off. That, to me, is the worst turn off. I don't want to be in a position where I'm in front of an inexperienced man. No, I like experience. And feel free, ladies, to share your comments below and let me know what you think. What do you prefer? But that's just my taste, my preference. You got to know what you're doing. You have to be well versed, right? These men that I'm with, like, I feel like it takes being like informed and intelligent. It takes a very smart man, right, to know a woman's body. You just have to be smart to know a woman's body, and experience, obviously. That's a whole nother type of intelligence right there. And I think in knowing a woman's body, you know what stimulates her. And you're not afraid. Like, alpha men, dominant men are not afraid to take risks. That's the reason I'm attracted to them. You have beta men that are so afraid to try things. Because they're so afraid and so guarded in that respect, it inhibits their ability to know. How do you know things? How do you learn? Most of the things that you learn, you went out there and experienced. Okay, you may have heard someone else talk about it, right? But to know something is to know it. And when you know something, you've done it. You've experienced it. So when you come across men who are just inexperienced or they're afraid, And they the type of men that want a woman to go first, kind of thing. Oh, you go first. Ain't my type of man, right? But the man who not afraid to tell a woman, I don't want you wearing clothes in my house, right? That type of fucking man. Or the man who actually takes initiative and takes a woman's clothes off, right? A lot of men nowadays, they got away from that, right? Think about the last time you had sex. Who took off your clothes? Did you take off your clothes or did he take off your clothes? I would guarantee you, I probably ain't going to comment publicly, but I would guarantee you the answer to that question is that you took off your own clothes. I just think it sets a different tone when a man does it. You're talking about being aroused, but you have to know, because some women like to dominate, right? For me, I like being dominated all the way around, just not in the bedroom, in and out of the bedroom. So, of course, I am more turned on by a man who takes off my clothes than me taking off my own clothes, right? Yeah. So, we're talking about sexual gratification. It's just like those little things. I made a lot of pointers here. I'm pretty sure there are a lot more, right? There's a lot more erogenous zones. There's not a lot more ways that a woman can be stimulated sexually, and sex starts in the mind. So we're talking about mental stimulation, and we think of the mind we point here, but the mind isn't just in the brain. Our mind is throughout our entire bodies. It's actually in our DNA, and our DNA lives in our entire body from head to toe. So our mind is all over our entire body, right? Do men know how to stimulate the mind without touching the body? That's a question. That's a question for y'all. Yes, I do believe it's a man's responsibility to sexually satisfy a woman. You goddamn right. It is a man's responsibility. And that does put a lot of pressure on men. You know, I couldn't imagine what it's like being a man, because I think men just, they have too much responsibility, right? So I think that, yeah, that can be very difficult. But for some men, they rise to the challenge. You know, they love it. They love that they have that responsibility. Full responsibility to thoroughly satisfy a woman and be fully in control in the bed. Those are the kind of men I like. Those are the kind of men I like. But listen, I can go on and on. I want you guys to drop your comments below. Share this video. It has been fun. I already know who's going to show up in the comments. Like I said, you have men, obviously, who can watch this video, get triggered, and feel a degree of insecurity, right? And start questioning themselves. Now, I think the goal, obviously, of this video is for you to self-reflect. So if you start thinking about your own personal life, I'm like, damn, the women I've been with, like, they've been faking orgasms? Have they? Yeah, they have. They've been faking, most likely, I can guarantee you 90% chance that those women have been faking those orgasms, or even moaning. Been faking it. It ain't nowhere it's cracked up to be. And I think that it's a challenge for women going forward, is to really rest in your truth. Full force. Right? So only give them back. Right? And in this expression, when you're having sex, right? Only express what you actually feel. If that ain't what you're feeling, you shouldn't be expressing all of that. You're doing too much with this performance, right? And that, I think, is the ultimate form of self-care, especially as it relates to the sexual intercourse. We talk about self-care a lot, right? Everyone want to sit up here and then go to the spa, right? That's a form of self-care, but self-care can manifest itself in so many different ways. And if you are communicating false truths to your partner just to make this other person feel better, but deep down inside you're not getting your personal needs met, that's not taking care of yourself. That's just the truth. How else will things change unless you change and you are being honest? I'm talking to the choir here. I'm speaking to myself because I know that shit ain't gonna be easy. But honestly, I don't plan on having sex anytime soon. That's just me because, yeah, I'm over it. I'm really over it. I'm over the disappointment in the sex. You know, she got to be right. If she ain't right, like, it's just, it creates more sexual frustration and more frustration just ultimately, you know, psychologically, emotionally, I think, when you're not getting your sexual needs met, you know, and you're in this position where you could, but it's not measuring up, right? So no. And then for other reasons where, you know, for me, like I said, I'm at that point, yes, where I'm ready to settle down, where I'm ready to build family. And unless a guy presents himself and is genuine, you know, in what he wants and in that presentation, I'm not turned on at all. It just ain't happening. But yeah, I gotta go get my clothes. You know, I'm doing laundry right now. I gotta get my clothes out the dryer. I will catch you guys later. This has been fun. Share this video. Leave your comments below. And I will catch y'all all in the next one.